One day, on his way home, Ray heard murmurs about him and his family again. Everyone was talking about the family's curse being true, and when they saw Ray passing by, they nervously greeted the red-haired kid. Ray ignored them, but deep inside, Ray liked that there were new rumors going around about him. Ray went home and saw horses in front of his house. He became excited when he realized that his father was home. He barged into the house, only to be met with the sight of his mother crying on the floor beside his sick father. Ray used his dragon's eye blessing and was shocked to see his father's status. Jack was mumbling about a nether shadow, and one of the knights said that Jack had been infected with the plague of shadow. Ray frowned. He had never heard of nether shadow or the plague of shadow, even when he was still a dragon in his past life. Ray then remembered an ability he had mastered in his past life. It is an ability that can probably help his father get better, but he doesn't have that ability now. And he has to kill high-ranked beasts in order to unlock the ability. Ray clenched his fists, thinking of how weak he currently is. He decided that in order to grow stronger and find a cure for his father, he was going to enroll in Avrian Academy. Meanwhile, the deans of Avrian Academy are standing around a magic crystal ball. In the crystal ball, they could see Ray. The Great Elder talked about the prophecy and how the world is going to change soon because of Ray. He ordered the others to tell the knights to find Ray as soon as possible. Because if Ray brings redemption to the world, they will guide him, but if Ray brings disaster, then he would have to be eliminated no matter what. The day of the test arrived, and everyone gathered around to see the arrival of the three well-known knights, Knight Delbert, Knight Winford, and Knight Bernardo. The three knights would be the ones to conduct the entrance exam for the children who have reached the age of 5. The children started taking the exam one by one. While waiting for his turn, Ray could hear Knight Delbert and Knight Winford talking, despite the two knights being so far from him. Ray smirked, satisfied that his senses were getting sharp. Then it was Gary's turn to take the exam. Gary passed after a while, the first one to do so. After taking the exam, Gary saw Ray, and he gave the red-haired boy a thumbs up, attracting the attention of the knights and the villagers. Knight Delbert saw Ray's red hair and immediately felt disgusted. He then activated a level 3 dummy, saying that if Ray really is the prophecy, then he would be able to pass. Knight Winford tried to stop him, but the dummy was already activated. As the level 3 dummy moved to attack Ray, Knight Winford readied himself to protect Ray, but Ray destroyed the level 3 dummy in just one hit, shocking everyone. Back at the Talon's home, Ray is saying goodbye to his sick father, promising to find a cure for him. Ray's mother gave him the family heirloom, wishing for it to bring him good luck. The mother and son bid their farewells to each other, and the mother teared up as she watched her only son leave their home. Ray met up with the knights and went on the same carriage as Gary. The two stayed in awkward silence for a while before Gary gathered enough courage to apologize to Ray. Ray accepted his apology, as Gary is still just 5 years old, and asked him where Amy is. Gary then told Ray that Amy went to Roland Academy, an academy where children with magic talents go. The knights saw smoke in front of them and halted all movements. Knight Winford introduced himself as a knight before asking who was in the smoke. An injured girl came out of the heavy smoke and introduced herself as Anne, an adventurer from the No Trace Guild. Knight Bernardo asked her what happened, and she answered that the Nether Shadow attacked her group. Knight Winford then offered to drop her off in Rainy Town, where they were going. Confused, Gary asked why they were going to Rainy Town and not to the Knight Academy, but Knight Delbert told them that it's no use to send kids to the front line. He explained that a war can occur anytime in the Avrian Knight Academy as it is a fortress located at the border, so the recruited children would need to train in Rainy Town for 10 years until they master their basic combat skills before they could attend the Avrian Knight Academy to enhance their skills. Ray was stunned to know how long he has to wait before he can attend Avrian Knight Academy, and he knows that he doesn't have that much time if he wants to save his father. They continued to travel again until they saw a huge beast up ahead. They identified the beast as the fallen King Bear, and it was infected with a Nether Shadow beast. The knights prepared to fight with the beasts, but they didn't notice a younger bear beast coming from behind them to attack Knight Bernardo. Knight Bernardo saw the beast but didn't have enough time to dodge it. Ray and Gary appeared and killed the beast, and Knight Bernardo praised them for a job well done before telling them to protect themselves. Meanwhile, Knight Winford was confused as to why the fallen King Bear was just standing, as if it were waiting for something. Gary was fighting a bear when another attacked him from behind. Ray then killed the beast who attacked Gary from behind, telling Gary to be careful. Everyone was shocked and the fallen King Bear who was just standing suddenly talked, telling them that they couldn't defeat the darkness forever and that everyone, including the people in their lives, would die. The fallen King Bear then jumped away from the humans, ending the battle. Ray obtained a novice rank beast core, but Ray was distracted by the King Bear's words. It was as if all the things the king bear had said were directed at him. Knight Winford approached the two kids and told them that they would become qualified knights in the future. Ray asked him if they normally encounter beasts that can talk, and he answered no. Knight Winford stared at the kid, suspicious of how calm and skilled Ray is. Meanwhile, Knight Delbert was also staring at Ray, but with hatred. They've arrived at Rainy Town, and they found it strange when they noticed that there were more guards than usual. 10 years have passed in Rainy Town. Gary is in class, and they are learning about QI, a type of ability that knights can cultivate at the age of 15 and above, even if they can't use magic. The teacher then asked Ray why it was necessary to cultivate QI at the age of 15, but Ray wasn't in the class, so Gary made an excuse that he was in the bathroom. And the teacher asked a female student named Naslavia instead. Naslavia answered that at an age below 15, one's internal organs are still not developed enough and could bring a great burden to a kid's body, so in order to not cause too much damage to the body, cultivating QI at the age of 15 is very necessary. Meanwhile, Ray is in the forest, fighting with beasts alongside his pet wolf, Nova. After the fight, Ray absorbed a novice-rank beast's core energy and fed Nova, praising the wolf for a job well done. Ray walked back to Rainy Town and met Knight Winford on the way. Knight Winford playfully applauded Ray for managing to sneak out despite being under strict security. He told Ray that he visited the Talon's house and assured Ray that his father's illness didn't get worse as his mother took care of him very well. Ray thanked Knight Winford before walking back to Rainy Town in sadness. In the past 10 years, Ray has done nothing but train hard, even when it was windy or raining heavily, he did everything he could to become stronger. Noticing his sadness, Knight Winford put his hand on Ray's shoulder and walked back with him to the town, trying to cheer up Ray. Meanwhile, at the Rainy Town entrance, one of the teachers, Mr. Aaron, was yelling at a guard for allowing Ray to leave. But since the Amber Alert was removed, the guard had no reason to stop Ray. When Ray came back and Aaron saw him with Knight Winford, he scolded the red-haired kid, and Knight Winford had to calm him down. An emergency meeting was announced, so everyone gathered in the Rainy Town Plaza. Ray met up with Gary, while Naslavia was just nearby, staring at him. An attendant named Lancy then announced that the students were going to the Avrian Knight Academy the day after, and the journey would take around 7 days. Knight Winford and a guard were talking behind the platform, and Winford stated that they would be taking the swamp route. The next day, the students left for their journey to the Avrian Knight Academy. In a carriage filled with students, the other students are complaining about not using the teleport device so they could easily go to the Avrian Knight Academy. But the Avrian Knight Academy didn't have a teleport device. As Naslavia said, since the Avrian Knight Academy is on the border, they can't have a teleport device because if they got defeated and invaded by enemies, the enemies would be able to teleport to any part of their country. Gary, who was listening to Naslavia talk, noticed the silver-haired girl looking at the sleeping Ray. The group stopped at a castle ruin to camp there for the night. While tidying up, Gary whispered to Ray about Naslavia constantly looking at Ray. The two of them then sneaked a peek at Naslavia and noticed her looking at Ray again. Ray assumed that it must have been because of his red hair, but Gary said otherwise, as Ray wasn't the only one with red hair anymore. There are twins named Duo and Huang who both have red hair, and there's also Ian and Kyle. Meanwhile, two students sneaked out of the camp and smelled something rotten. They noticed a dirty swamp and were shocked, and Lancy appeared from behind them, telling them to go back to the camp if they didn't want to get attacked by the swamp beasts. When everyone was already asleep besides the guards, Ray sneaked out again to hunt beasts but was stopped by Naslavia, who was pulling on his sleeve. Ray shrugged her hands off and told her not to worry, as he can deal with intermediate rank beasts too. The next day, they continued traveling, and Ray was sleeping in the carriage again, as he hadn't been able to sleep at all the other night. Everyone was getting suspicious at how quiet it was when a sharp bug beast suddenly attacked the group. One sharp bug went to attack a pink-haired girl but was killed by Gary, who took the lead and told everyone to leave the carriage. Ray was confused at how the other students seemed to be too excited about fighting the sharp bugs. He used the Dragon's Eye blessing and realized that the sharp bugs were just novice ranked, so they were easy to defeat. He also noticed the 6 knights that left before everyone else. He realized that this incident was on purpose, and the knights wanted to see how the students would fight the beasts. Unbothered, Ray went back to the carriage to sleep again. Meanwhile, at the mountain peak, Knight Winford and Lancy were with other guards, watching the students fight. They commended Gary and Naslavia, who were taking the lead in the fighting. Suddenly, the sharp bugs started gathering together and forming a bigger sharp bug. It attacked one kid, and the other red-headed kids killed the bigger, sharper bug to protect the others. The knights commended the redhead kids and thought that Ray wasn't as good as the other redheads. After the battle, everyone went back to the carriage, and the students talked about ranks. There are different belt colors that students can get. A white belt is for the highest rank, a green belt is for the second, and a red belt is for the lowest ranked students. Most of the time, students with red belts are ignored and can do whatever they want since they are low ranks and no one cares about them. Hearing this, Ray got excited. While the other students wanted to get white belts, Ray wanted to get a red belt so he could do whatever he wanted and hunt beasts more. Everyone has arrived at the Avrian Night Academy. The students were in awe at how grand the Avrian Night Academy is. The academy is filled with magic crystal, which provides the academy with energy. Lancey took the students on a tour of the academy. Lancey took them to the armory, the library, and lastly, the cemetery, where the knights who had fought and died for the kingdom of Alar were buried. This is a way of reminding the students that war never ends, and that someday, they might end up like the late knights who died defending and protecting their homeland. Meanwhile, Ray stared at the huge armored statue in the middle, getting angrier by the second as he realized that these people used the bodies of the dragons humans had killed, to make armor and weapons. Naslavia asked who the statue was, and Lancey answered that it was the statue of the legendary Dragon Knight, the founder of the Avrian Night Academy. Lancey then guided the students out of the cemetery, but Ray was frozen in his place as he saw something underneath the cemetery using his dragon's eye blessing. He realized that whatever monster was down there, it was alive. On their way to the dormitory, Gary was blabbering while Ray was distracted, still thinking about what he saw at the cemetery. Arriving at their dorm, Naslavia was flabbergasted when she realized that she would live with boys. Since Avrian Night Academy treats all genders equally, they let male and female knights live together. But Naslavia was flustered, she didn't want to live with the boys and ended up running away to complain to the knights. After hitting Gary, that is. Gary and Ray then met up with Ian, who would live with them too. They read the papers stamped on the wall to see who their other dorm mates were, and they read the names of Dan and Martha. Naslavia came back again since she wasn't able to change dorms. She told her dorm mates to stay outside as she was going to change her clothes before going in the dorm. The group that was left outside then saw Dan approaching. Gary, having had a mischievous idea, told Dan that there was a cockroach inside, so they couldn't go in. Wanting to be a role model for the other students, Dan happily went inside to kill the cockroach. Not even a second later, after he went in the room, the group outside was having the time of their lives listening to the screams of Dan, who was clearly getting beaten up by Naslavia. In the dining hall, Gary and the group are eating, with Ray gobbling down food like it's his last. Gary and Dan were talking about Naslavia when she arrived and screamed at the boys, scaring them. She then asked them how they were able to still eat when they would be given an assessment soon. Ray and Gary just shrugged her question off, as assessments had nothing to do with free foods after all. Then two bullies from a different town came and started insulting them, calling them poor for the way they eat. They also insulted Ian and the rest of the red-headed students, calling them freaks. One of Rainy Town's students, Monk, tried to tell the two bullies to stop, but sweet, sensible Ian stopped him to avoid more fights. These caused the bullies to target Ian more. Ray had enough, and he pinned one of the bullies to the table. The others tried to stop Ray as the knights were watching, but Ray didn't care. Knight Lancey came and told Ray to stop, but Ray didn't listen. Ray reminded Ian that if someone were to bully them, they'd have to show them who's boss. Ray broke the bully's arm after that. Angry, Knight Lancey reprimanded Ray for not listening to him, but Ray talked back, saying that just like Knight Lancey, Ray only hears what he wants to hear. And murmurs in the dining hall started after that, as the other students whispered about Ray being right. The knights didn't care when the two bullies were bothering the group, but they only started doing their job properly when Ray fought back. The great Night Lords arrived, and Knight Winford announced the arrival of the deans of Avrian Academy. The students were shocked to see the 6 elders. Ray stared at the elders with his dragon's eye blessing activated, seeing how strong the elders' aura was, similar to the aura of those who killed him in his past life. Knight Winford then started explaining the first assessment. The elders would be the witnesses to the assessment, and the results of the assessment would determine what color belt the students would receive. Knight Winford encouraged the students that even if they get a red belt, it's still possible for them to be on the same level as him in the future, as he believes the students have what it takes to be honorable knights. Ray thought of Knight Winford's reaction if he were to get the red belt. Knight Winford finished explaining, and he left the duty to Lancey, who was staring at Ray with fury, probably planning something evil for the unexpecting 15-year-old.